everybody, Benjamin here. Last month, I did a video on all the bosses in Super Mario Galaxy 1, ranking which ones I thought were the best and which ones I thought were the worst. Today, we're going to be doing a similar thing with Super Mario Galaxy 2. Will these bosses be on par or even surpass the bosses in Galaxy 1 in terms of quality? We'll have to wait and see. But one quick thing I will mention is that any bosses that appeared in the post-game of Super Mario Galaxy will not be on this list. Specifically, the bosses that appear in the Boss Blitz Galaxy. All of those fights are rehashes of fights from the original Galaxy game that have no changes whatsoever between the two games. The other quick change is that I will be playing as Luigi in this video. Ignore the shirt, guys. I don't have a Luigi shirt. I'm sorry.
You look ridiculous.
But that gives the brothers equal amount of screen time and gives me a little bit of an extra challenge with these bosses in Galaxy 2. But no more dilly-dallying here. Let's just get right into the ranking. Number 16, Mandy Bug Step.
This again?
Oh, come on!
I can't believe this. Of all the bosses to return in Galaxy 2, they brought back this one? Why? You barely even see other Mandy Bugs in the Puzzle Plank Galaxy throughout this mission, so you could have literally brought back anyone else. Oh wait, it has boss music now? Yeah, no, that totally fixes everything somehow. S tier boss. Get up! Let's just say this is where the real list begins. Number 15, Rollodillo. This boss is the final test in the Boulder Bowl Galaxy where you acquire the Rock Mushroom. This is one of the many super cool power-ups in the game, but you wouldn't feel like that fighting this boss. Rollodillo rolls around towards you like an armadillo, and when he gets tired, he leaves his rear end exposed, allowing you to ram right into him with Rock Mario. Or Rock Luigi. Sorry, I meant to say Rock Luigi. Don't give me that look. I won't do it again. His fight is built almost exactly like the Bowser fights from Galaxy 1, except it's way less engaging. Reason for this is because where Bowser had multiple attacks, Rollodillo just has one. So as intimidating as he looks, all you gotta do is walk a little to the side and you've dodged his roll attack. He's all bark and no bite, which puts him at the bottom of the list. Number 14, Pee-wee Piranha. From a worse version of Bowser to a worse version of Dino Piranha, it's Pee-wee Piranha. For as much originality as most fights in this game have, Pee-wee Piranha is simply not one of those. Yes, it's the first boss in the game, and yes, it's trying to teach players how to use the spin attack effectively, just like Dino Piranha did in Galaxy 1, but if you've already played that game, you should already know how to use the spin attack effectively in Galaxy 2. It's still a good fight, I guess, but nothing to write home about. Number 13, Sorbetti, or the snowman guy thing. Similar to the Undergrunt Gunner from Galaxy 1, Sorbetti just annoys me. To damage him, you have to spin attack his big red nose. It seems simple enough to accomplish, and the first two hits aren't too hard to land. But for the final phase, Sorbetti starts rolling around much faster, and due to all the snow piles and trees, he can bounce around so much that it's near impossible to hit the nose again. Either that, or Luigi's slippery controls failed me. At least you only fight Sorbetti once, but that doesn't make him any less annoying, especially not with his clown noises.
Shut up!
Number 12, Glamdozer, the bee queen from the Flipsville Galaxy. This one's also a weird and annoying fight, but there's a little bit more strategy involved that makes the fight a bit more interesting. Throughout the level, you're shown how to flip gravity by ground pounding into the grates, which are then used against Glamdozer to take her out. The first hit is super easy, but once she starts spitting fire bubbles, the grates can get covered in lava and block openings to attack. This can make the fight unnecessarily long, but figuring out the patterns of how the fire bubbles spread and how Glamdozer moves afterwards can make the final attack admittedly very satisfying. Not one of my favorite bosses by a long shot, but reflecting on the strategy around it keeps it interesting. Number 11, King Lakitu, the first boss with Yoshi. This takes one of the old boss tropes of turning a regular enemy into a boss, this time with Lakitu. King Lakitu is only the second boss in Galaxy 2, and I remember it being a lot more difficult as a kid than it turned out to be upon replay. It's a clever enough fight where you use Yoshi's tongue to eat the Spinies and spit them back out at the boss. Not much else to say here, unfortunately. King Lakitu is a boss fight that is the definition of the phrase,
This is fine.
Number 10, Bugaboom. Okay, unlike the returning bosses in the post-game, and Bugaboom returns with a small change that makes a huge difference. This time around, instead of the bee mushroom, you have to fight Bugaboom with the cloud flower. This means that instead of flying, you make temporary platforms in the air and wait to strike. Funnily enough, this boss was still as challenging as it was in the original, and I really like its shakeup. However, I don't feel comfortable ranking it any higher simply because it's still a Galaxy 1 boss and not a completely original concept. Number 9, Dig-a-Leg. Something you probably noticed by now is, unlike Galaxy 1, many of Galaxy 2's bosses involve power-ups. This trend continues with Dig-a-Leg, where you need to use the spin drill to drill through the earth and damage Dig-a-Leg's undercarriage. Seems simple enough to do, but Dig-a-Leg is deceptively mobile. He'll trounce around and jump from time to time, so if you miss the target, you can get punished badly. You're also locked to a 2D playing field, so there's not much room for error. This is a good fight that gets stuck in the middle of the pack, but one thing that's not mid about this fight is the music. Best boss theme in the game for sure. Number 8. Smack dab in the middle of the list is Bowser? Oh my, what a massive fall off. Seriously though, what on earth happened here? In Galaxy 1, Bowser is constantly charging after you. So every time you fool him or lay a direct hit, it can feel like an epic back and forth fist fight at times. But in Galaxy 2, Bowser is giant and he floats around the planet, so all he does is punch the planet or summon asteroids to crush into the planet, which can then be used to fire back and smack Bowser. Then he'll also breathe fire every once in a while. That's it! There's no other engaging combat going on whatsoever. It mostly consists of just running around the planet aimlessly until the asteroids are made available. This fight is so tedious and slow, but the worst of it all has to be the final boss, where Bowser does one of his classic fake-out deaths that gets way overused in the 2010 Mario games. This final phase has the visual spectacle without any punishing challenge to it. You literally can't take damage here even if you tried. At least the levels leading up to these fights make up for it, but regardless, Bowser is such a disappointing downgrade from Galaxy 1. Cutting in here real fast, sorry about being so harsh on that last one. It's really hard to top perfection with what Bowser set in the first game, but I just feel that the Galaxy 2 Bowser fights could have been so much more than what they turned out to be. This is still a good boss fight, but for Bowser standards, he just does not bring it here. So that's why he ends up in the middle of the pack. Anyways, on to the rest of the list. Number 7, Squizzard. We're back to another boss that requires a power-up to beat. And shockingly, it's a timed power-up this time. The Fire Flower. Squizzard is easily one of the most challenging fights in Galaxy 2, where you are constantly on the move, dodging Squizzard's spike eggs and avoiding the quicksand. Once you acquire the Fire Flower, you have to wait for Squizzard to open his mouth so you can burn him to a crisp. It's such an explosive boss fight that is so satisfying to beat. And if I was ranking this based on the Daredevil run, it'd probably go up even higher on the list. Number 6, Whomp King. Not a throwback from the first Galaxy game, but rather a complete reimagining of a classic battle from Super Mario 64. The Whomp King makes his grand return in a faithful recreation of Whomp's fortress, and it has a unique twist in that you defeat a normal Whomp at the top of the fortress before flipping to the underside of the planet and seeing just how much the Whomp King has grown. The ground he covers when he smashes into it is much larger. One wrong move and you're dead instantly. This boss gets more challenging with different stun attacks and mini Whomps throughout the fight, and they all add up to create a fantastic love letter to the first 3D Mario game. A perfect last major fight before heading to Bowser's Galaxy Generator. Number 5, Prince Picante. So, this fight is basically if King Caliente could move freely on the battlefield, which is awesome! Prince Picante mans a tank across an icy arena, requiring you to skate to keep up with his speed. He shoots out fireballs and coconuts, which the coconuts can be used to smack back at him just like King Caliente. However, because you and him are constantly moving, it could be much more difficult to land the hits. What's more, the fireballs will land on the ice and turn small patches into lava, making it even more difficult to maneuver around the arena. Landing every attack while skating back and forth makes for one of the most engaging boss battles in all of Galaxy 2. Number 4, Gobblegut. Now we can talk about what is probably the most iconic boss fight in this game. Gobblegut is a flying dragon with a big appetite. He swarms around the planet and scoops down every so often to try and eat Mario. Or Luigi. Sorry, I said Luigi. I meant to say Luigi! Then there are moments where he drills his head straight through the planet, making his weak spots vulnerable. Pop all 6 of them, and Gobblegut's dead. This is easier said than done, however, as Gobblegut will swing back around as you're waiting for the weak points to appear and knock you away if you're not constantly on the move. This is more challenging in the second half of the fight, where the weak spots are farther down his tail, and waiting longer for those causes more chaos on the battlefield. If you're really good though, you can backflip and reach the weak points while they're still in the air. A fantastic boss that admittedly isn't too challenging. I wonder what can make this fight more difficult.
Fire!
Number 3, Fiery Gobblegut. Of course there's a fire variant. Gobblegut is just as great here, but now you can't just hang around his body or else you'll get burned by his skin. Not only that, but every time Gobblegut dips into the planet, he leaves a puddle of lava behind. And on the second half of the fight, fire bubbles start falling from the sky, crashing into the planet and making even more lava puddles. Not much else to say, but it's a fight that will have you on the ropes until the very last punch, which is something I can't say about most fights in Mario games. And now we've come to the top 2 bosses of Super Mario Galaxy 2. And you may have noticed that there is one little bugger we haven't talked about yet. Bowser Jr. As I noted in the last video, Bowser Jr. only had one fight, which kind of left me in a curious state. But it's clear now that Nintendo was saving up some crazy ideas for Bowser Jr. here in the second game. And for once, Bowser Jr. doesn't get outshined by his old man. The only question now is, which fight comes on top? Well, it really is a toss-up between these 2 fights. But I'm gonna have to say that number 2 is Mega Hammer. Surprisingly, this is the only other fight in the game that involves Yoshi, but boy does he get his time to shine. Mega Hammer is a giant robot that has hammers for hands.
Yeah, go figure.
He shoots out bullet bills that Yoshi can catch with his tongue and spit back at his,
Man boobs.
Each of these spots have to be hit 2 times each, and there's also one on his back, so you have to use a star launcher to get there fast enough to blow it up. However, this is one of those fights where if you know what you're doing, you can cheese Mega Hammer's counters and blocks to damage him multiple times before he can fully retaliate. After all 3 weak points are destroyed, Mega Hammer's head containing Bowser Jr. is exposed, and this is when the hammers really start coming down. Time everything just right without losing Yoshi, and you beat him in a jiffy. Man, this was such a good fight. But as I alluded to, there's one more that tops them all. Number 1, Bowser Jr.'s Boomsday Machine. Oh man, Bowser Jr.'s not messing around. The Boomsday Machine is a giant, intimidating tower that has a flame wheel at its base and fires out electrical blasts from its head. Because the machine is so tall, you have to use the Cloud Flower to gain the height necessary to climb to the top and break the glass ceiling Bowser Jr. The first 2 phases aren't too challenging, but on the 3rd phase, yeah, turns out this was a mobile tank the whole time. As a kid, this twist was mind-meltingly insane. I had such a hard time keeping up with the movements of Bowser Jr., figuring out when he charges after you and when he starts making defensive maneuvers. The fans that he'll pull out to suck in all the platforms made it even worse to deal with. But nowadays, I've gotten a hold of the patterns well enough to defeat him with relative ease. I'll admit that this fight probably overtakes Mega Hammer due to the nostalgia I have of beating this boss as a kid. But the sheer spectacle of this boss in combination with its challenge is what takes it all the way to the top of the list as my favorite boss in Super Mario Galaxy 2. And there you have it. my ranking of every boss in Super Mario Galaxy 2. Now, one question still remains: which game do I think has the better bosses overall? And I really can't decide. However, I will give this distinction. While I do feel that the Galaxy 1 bosses are overall more iconic, the bosses in Galaxy 2 are much more challenging, and thus are more fun to fight. So, take that distinction the way you want to. Now that I've talked about both Galaxy games on this channel, all that remains is the Super Mario Galaxy movie. I already got my tickets to go see it, and it'll be on opening night. So be sure to subscribe to keep up to date with what's going on this channel, and be on the lookout for my review for the Super Mario Galaxy movie. Also, if you like this video, be sure to leave a like and comment on what your favorite bosses from Super Mario Galaxy 2 are. With that, you know, fights in this game weren't actually too hard here or in the first game, even though I said that the Galaxy 2 bosses are a little more challenging. Surely I didn't have a hard time replaying the levels leading up to the fights, right? We're still rolling? Oh my gosh, I'll see you guys later.